This video made use of AI to dub the audio from Punjabi to English, but we have not used AI to change or alter anything anybody has said in this video, and all of the words that you hear are direct translations of the original speech. By December of 2019, Sidhu Moosewala had taken the crown of India's most buzzing gangster rapper. He had blended the sounds of America's rap anthems with the melodies and cadence of his native Punjabi music, and in the process became one of the most watched stars in the country. He wanted to be India's Tupac, and at this point, all eyes were truly on him. And interestingly, when he decided to get active on social media at the end of 2019 and into 2020, he would truly be living that thug life. He'd been posing pictures like this one, holding what seems to be a 9mm Beretta handgun. As Sidhu explained in early interviews, he was obsessed with powerful steel, whether it's firearms or tractors. And Sidhu would use his Instagram to post all manner of powerful steel. In another picture posted up on Insta, he would show off a new tractor with a Thug Life decal and a caption where he claims to have been around death. But it would be much more than guns and tractors. What sort of gangster rapper would he be without posting some flashy lifestyle pics to show off that he was surrounded by money and luxury? And moving into February 2020, Sidhu would post up next to a Bugatti Veyron with a caption paying homage to Tupac, referring to a rose that grew from the concrete. Sidhu was clearly having a good year and living the good life. His 2020 kicked off with a bang, appearing as a feature on Prem Dillon's track Old School, which racked up a ridiculous 320 million views. It came with brash bars about having to put in work on the streets and the police being onto him. He would shout out which guns he's got in his arsenal, rapping that he likes guns more than girls, and he would drop electrifying bars about having single-handedly brought in a revolution with his music, and celebrating his quick come-up, bragging that he's won the world in just 2 years. That track would be followed by Tibian Dapat, which today sits at over 240 million views. Interestingly, this track actually featured English subtitles hard-coded onto the video, a major signal that Sidhu was trying to broaden his appeal to an international audience in a way that he'd never done before. And interestingly, this song was leaning heavily into the revolutionary theme. The song featured a lot of lyrics alluding to the strength of people in Musa and the Jat's willingness to fight authority, as well as the poor conditions where he's from. Now, the video itself features firearms and military vehicles, the latter of which is something that Moosewala wouldn't normally put in his videos, usually opting to show off things like tractors or Range Rovers or G-Wagons. The video also featured a poster from his mother's election campaign, and he raps in the hook about the youth of major cities being crazy about him, and the chorus of the song is basically him saying to envy the Jats is fatal, all while he's being portrayed as a sort of head of the village surrounded by armed guards. And he goes on to rap about having to say bad things and do bad and be surrounded by goons just to get where he is in life. He would also diss the Western entertainment industry, saying the black and white freaks in Hollywood are watching him and copying his moves, even calling out Westerners for doing reactions to his songs. But most interestingly, he would end the track with a powerful message, saying that he doesn't belong to a noble family and he doesn't have any grandeur to his name, saying that he's just a humble village kid, but despite that, he has powerful people scared of him, and saying that the words from his pen sting people like poison. This was Sidhu's most political song yet, and it really spoke in the revolutionary tone that he'd built up over the years, but this was his most pointed political message by far. And the song resonated amongst the people. It landed at the number 8 spot on Apple's Top 100 India charts. No doubt this was Sidhu honestly reflecting on the feathers that he had ruffled behind the scenes, but he was showing no signs of letting up. In May 2020, Sidhu chose to release his next full-length project, the aptly titled album Snitches Get Stitches. The album received mixed reviews from critics and the public, largely because it was a compilation of mostly unreleased tracks from SoundCloud or songs that had previously leaked online. So he was criticized by fans and critics for a lack of new music, but it turned out that things were much more complicated behind the scenes. Sidhu had wanted to go independent with his music. He was already releasing songs on his own YouTube channel after seemingly leaving a deal with T-Series behind. Allegedly, the Snitches Get Stitches mixtape was a hurried release that happened suddenly amid a disagreement between the Brown Boys record label headed up by Big Bird, who had produced many of Sidhu's early hits, including his biggest song, So High. Things had turned bitter in the group amid a dispute about the song My Block, which was produced by Big Bird. But anyway, following his breakup from the Brown Boys, Sidhu became his own boss and formed his very own record label in August 2020, and he named it 5911 Records, after the famous tractor, which is heavily sought after in the Jat community. But sadly, 5911 Records was formed in the midst of turmoil for Sidhu's career, as Sidhu's love of firearms had gotten him into serious trouble again throughout the summer of 2020, this time being charged with numerous gun offences. The first of these cases was filed on May the 4th after a video was released of Sidhu firing an AK-47, which went viral soon after its release. But oddly, in the video, which was seemingly filmed during the early stages of the COVID-19 lockdowns, Sidhu is clearly in the presence of Indian police while firing the gun. And the video itself was even allegedly filmed on a firing range that belonged to the police in the Barnala district in Punjab. Therefore, this specific case was not only registered against Sidhu, but 8 others, including the police officers who were present during the shooting. During this time, the Punjabi police were coming down on Sidhu with full force, and the very next day, the police from another district in the state called Sangrur filed another case against him for using a 9mm pistol at the the Lardakothi firing range, which is also police property. The cases were then held as non-bailable, and a special team was assembled to carry out raids to try and catch Sidhu, but he would manage to evade arrest. Interestingly, he was then later found on June the 6th by police from the town of Nabha, located in yet another district of Punjab, Patiala, with him being pulled over in traffic due to tinted windows. But despite being wanted in these two other districts, Sidhu would actually be let go, with the local police then releasing a statement claiming it was for the Sangrur and Barnala police to proceed further in their own cases against Sidhu. Now, this strange series of circumstances probably says something. Either bad blood between these police departments of different districts, or on the other hand, there might have been a big difference between the higher-ups in law enforcement that were trying to take him down, while at the street level, cops who are possibly big fans of Sidhu may not want to be the ones to put their favourite star in handcuffs. But anyway, at the end of June, Sidhu would finally appear in front of the court in the Sangrur district, with the media reporting that Sidhu had seemingly managed to convince the court to grant him an interim bail on the condition that he would join the investigation within 7 days. And by what appeared to be a major stroke of luck, Sidhu would manage to avoid any jail time on these charges in several districts. But unfortunately, instead of choosing to lay low, Sidhu then chose to release his new song, Sanju, the very next day on the 16th of July, a bold track which was seen as a massive middle finger and protest towards the police. The concept of the song is based on a famous Indian actor, Sanjay Dutt, who was faced with similar gun charges as Sidhu back in the mid-90s. Dutt, who had risen to prominence in Bollywood during the early 90s, was caught purchasing multiple AR rifles from a so-called mafia don named Abu Salam during the so-called 1993 Bombay bombings that followed socio-political unrest in the region. Salam was part of a major crime syndicate called the D Company, who were considered to be responsible for these recent terrorist attacks, while Dutt himself would argue that he had only been interested in getting the weapons in order to protect his family during these violent times. This was a motive that seemed to resonate with Sidhu too. Now, the song itself was a massive success and now sits over 130 million views on YouTube alone, and in keeping with Sidhu's deep admiration of Tupac, the track itself has an ominous sample being played throughout, with Tupac saying, "They'll never take me alive." Clearly, Sidhu wanted to send a message to both the police and the public, and the music video for the song featured real video material from Sidhu's legal proceedings during his case and even his almost violent run-ins with the paparazzi at that time.
The big news of this village is that a section of General Arms Act has been imposed against Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. He was seen wielding the weapon AK-47.
A case had been filed against the actor Sanjay Dutt.
Sidhu begins the song itself directly mentioning his case and how he's been depicted by the Indian media as a gun-wielding menace. Kinda similar to how Tupac was demonized by the media partway through his career during his stint in prison, where he also maintained his innocence. Anyway, in the song, Sidhu makes reference to catching the same sorts of charges as Sanjay Dutt, and he claims that a minimum imprisonment is around the corner for him, likely referencing his ongoing cases and an expectation that he would be doing some jail time. Next, Sidhu mentions how he hasn't gone far, saying he's on the run, but he will take his charges head on, and that he hasn't got blood on his mind yet. He continues to explain how the case is bogus and that the lawyers and cops are making a bag off of bringing these charges, going on to say that he'll be taking his appeal up with God. To release a song that's such a blatant protest towards the police in the midst of a serious case while on bail for sure is a pretty crazy move. And as expected, another case was brought against Sidhu not long after this song dropped. The police held that this particular song glorified violence and made it appear that having multiple charges was the sign of being a real man. And just as Sidhu had predicted, after releasing the song, in Sanju, the police filed a petition to cancel his bail, once again leading to a possible jail time. And they also ensured that no songs would be allowed to be played live if they glorified liquor, drugs, or violence, which unfortunately is most of Sidhu's catalogue out the window. Now, this was the last trace of this case that I could find on the internet, and it appears that Sidhu and the courts eventually came to some sort of settlement agreement, and ultimately he avoided prison time after everything was said and done. But unfortunately for Sidhu, the police wouldn't be the biggest threat, as later in 2020, things would go much further than Sidhu undergoing firearms cases and protesting the police, as the real gangs emerging from the Punjabi underworld would be much more dangerous, and soon Sidhu would find himself on the radar as some of India's most serious gangsters.